Okay, in this video we're going to talk about the two-step equations. Alright, first you learned about one-step equation, where you just had a variable and something added or subtracted or multiplied or divided to that variable, and you solve for that. But this time it'll take two steps. So if you remember in my one-step equation video, we talked about three things that you could ask yourself. And I have put the three things over here under the steps. The first one is what's the variable, the second one is what's being done to the variable, and then you do the opposite to both sides. Now, in one step, we only did it one time. In two step, we go do it twice. We do the process once, and then we go ahead and do it again. So here we go. We're going to do this. Now remember, there are many ways to do this. I'm just showing you one simple way. All right, so the first thing I'm going to ask myself is what's my variable? Well, my variable is x. You can see it, it's right there. All right, and so now I'm going to ask what's being done to x? Well, it's being multiplied by 5, so we're going to put a little thing here. It's being multiplied by 5, and it's being added by 7. All right, we always get rid of the add and subtract first. All right, so when you do this, you always get rid of the add and subtract first. Now, the equal sign, you can think of it as a wall, okay? So you're going to have to subtract, so when you look at your variable, it's being, like I said, being multiplied by 5, and it's being added by 7. So, like I said, we're going to get rid of the add first. You always get rid of the add first, add or subtract. All right, so the opposite of plus 5 is the opposite of plus 7 is minus 7. All right, so I'm going to subtract 7 to both sides. Now, I have done the process already for the first step. Now I'm just bringing it down. So I'm going to bring down 5x. If you remember, this is what we called a zero pair, so you just kind of cancel it out. We bring down our equal sign, and now this is the area that you have to really watch out. All right, remember we were adding and subtracting, so if you look, I got a negative 23 and I got a negative 7. All right, so you can put that in your calculator, and of course it'll give you the answer, but make sure you put negative 23 subtract 7. All right, now if you were to do this, two negatives means you're going to add the numbers. So you say 23 plus 7, that's 30. And because they're both negative, you're going to have a negative sign. Now, some kids mess up here. All right, I always tell this is the watch out section. All right, because it's the signs. The signs mess you up. But if you use a calculator, you should be good. Now, if you're trying to do this in your head, remember that when the signs are the same, you add and you go with that sign. If the signs are different, something like this, if one's a minus and one's a plus, then you're going to subtract the numbers and then pick the sign that's on the biggest number. Okay, in this case, we have a negative 30 because they're both negative. All right. Now, see, we've done the steps once. Now we're going to do the steps again. Now we ask ourselves a question. We ask ourselves this question again. What's the variable? Well, it's x. What's being done to x? It's being multiplied by 5. Excuse me. The opposite of multiply by 5 is divide both sides by 5. And when I do this, remember we have 5 divided by 5. This is really one of the most missed questions. A lot of kids think that this is a 0, but it's actually 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 1 times x is going to give me my x value. And now you take negative 30 and you divide it by 5, and you're going to get negative 6. Again, there's a way to check this. You can just plug in the negative 6 in for x, and that gives me a negative 30, and then you add 7, negative 30 plus 7, and you're going to end up with an answer of negative 23, which is exactly what we have up here. All right, let's go to another one. So my answer there is x equals a negative 6. Next problem. We're going to do example 2. All right, example 2, let's say that we have something like this. We'll do one very similar to what we just had. All right, I'm just going to walk through it. I'm not going to write the steps down. All right, so what's my variable? My variable is x. What's being done to x? Well, it's being multiplied by 2 and it's being subtracted by 8. We always get rid of add and subtract first. So what's the opposite of subtract by 8? Well, you should say you're going to add 8 to both sides. Remember, there's like a little wall here, so you're doing it to both sides of that wall. All right, and so we bring down our 2x. Remember, this is called a zero pair. They cancel each other out. And now I got 10 plus 8. Well, 10 plus 8, you should know, is 18 because you're going to add them. All right, so we've done the process for the substitutes. Now we're going to go back over and ask the same questions again. What's my variable? It's x. What's being done to x? It's being multiplied. Whenever a number and a letter are side by side, like what you see here, that means multiply. And so the opposite of multiply is divide. So that little line means divide. And we're going to put a 2 because we're dividing both sides by 2. Remember, 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 times x is x. And then 18 divided by 2, or you can say how many times is 2 going to 18? You should say 9. All right. Again, you could check it by saying 2. You have an x minus 8. You're going to plug the x in for the 9 in for the x, so it's 2 times 9, which that's 18 minus 8, and you should get 10. And if you look, it's the same 10 that we have up here. All right, let's try another one. All right, let's make this a little bit fun. Let's try this example 3. What if we have this? All right, so again, we're going to do the same process. What's my variable? Well, my variable is w now. And what's being done to w? Well, it's being divided by 4, and it's also being subtracted by 6. What do we always get rid of first? Add and subtract. So we're going to look at our add and subtract and do the opposite. So we got a minus 6, so the opposite of minus 6 is a plus 6. And we're going to do that to both sides. We're going to bring down our w divided by 4. Negative 6 and a plus 6, that's a zero pair, so we can cross those out. And 4 plus 6 is 10. All right, that's the first step. Now the second step. The second step, we do the same process. What's my variable? Well, the variable is w. What's being done to w? It's being multiplied, it's being divided by 4. Now watch out, since it's being divided by 4, we're going to multiply both sides by 4. And I like using a parentheses. The number inside the parentheses gives me the 4. And really, remember, this is like 4 over 1 because they're both a fraction. Normally, we'd multiply straight across, but you don't have to. If you have a 4 on the top of the fraction and a 4 on the bottom, they cancel each other out. All right, so you end up with w. 10 times 4 is 40. And so 40 is my answer. So how do I know I'm right? So I take w divided by 4 and then subtract 6. I plug the 40 into the w. And what's 40 divided by 4? 10. And 10 minus 6 is 4. And is the answer what we got? A 4. Sure is. All right, let's try a really fancy one. All right, now we have a really good one here. We have 2/5 x plus 12 equals 30. Now, could you change the 2/5 to a decimal? You can if it comes out perfect. And 2/5 does come out perfect. It actually becomes out 0.4. Now, if it was like 0.33333 repeating, you can't change it to a decimal. You just have to leave it as a fraction. And the method that I'm showing you is not that bad. It's really easy for if you can still use a fraction. All right, so here we go. Watch me do this. Same process. Alright, so I asked myself, what's the variable? My variable is x. And what is being done to the variable? Well, if you look, it looks like it's being multiplied by 2/5, and it's being added by 12. Alright, so what do we always get rid of first? Add and subtract. Since we have plus 12, we're going to put our wall here. We're going to subtract 12 to both sides. Alright, so subtracting 12 to both sides. I'm going to bring down my 2/5 x. This becomes a zero pair again. Don't forget your equal sign. Now you got to be careful, because if you have a positive 30 and you have a minus 12, think about it. You have $30. You subtract $12, or you spend $12. You can put in a calculator to find out. And my answer should be 18. Excuse me, not 18. Is it 18? Yeah, 18. Yeah. Okay. Now notice my fraction. Okay. I still have my fraction, so I'm going to write it a little closer so we can see it. That looks terrible, so I'm going to rewrite it. Oop, what did I do? 2/5 x equals 18. All right, now the x is being multiplied by a 2/5. We can divide both sides by 2/5, but this is a special thing. We could do a special trick here, special case, okay? The special case is that whenever you see a fraction like this next to a variable, you can multiply its reciprocal. And the word reciprocal means you can flip it. So instead of 2/5, we're going to multiply both sides by 5/2. So if I take 2/5 and I flip it, and I like putting my multiply into parentheses, I'm going to do it to both sides. I'm going to make everything look like a fraction, so you see the 18 there, it's a whole number. I'm going to put a 1 underneath it to make it look like a fraction. Okay? And I'm going to erase this part here so we don't get confused. Now we can multiply straight across top and bottom, so that would be 10/10. I'll put the x, and then 18 times 5, that's 90 divided by 2. Alright, and so 10 divided by 10 is 1, so my answer is x, or variable's x, and 90 divided by 2, right, is going to be 45. So my answer here is 45. One more thing, and I'm not going to spend too long on this, but what would happen if we had, and I'm going to write this down real quick. What would have happened if we had the number first and then had the variable on the other side? Well, we could do two things. We could move this guy over here and then move this over here. We could do that. Alright? If we do, we would have to change their signs. Or actually, we could just leave it like it is. We could just write -8/5 minus 5 equals 39. And we could leave it like that. And see, notice how I just flipped them around? And now I can do the same thing. I'm going to add 5 to both sides. Bring down my -8y. 0 pair. That's going to be 44. Divide both sides by -8 because it's being multiplied, so the opposite is divide. And then 2 negative is going to make a +1, so it'll be +1y equals, now I divide 8 into 44, alright, which is going to give me a -5.5, which is a negative because we only have one negative.